Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hari Om. Let's get started with invocation prayers.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धतामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय पुत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोक्ता गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदे कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्तोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भारतपङ्कजं कल्मलप्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं कयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैर्गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. Happy Navratri to everyone. Today we start the festival of Navratri. With that auspiciousness, let's start with the satsang today. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Panchamo Dhyayah Karma Sannyasa Yogaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Panchamodhyayah Karma Sannyasa Yogaha. Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna.
Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna.
Punaryogam cha shamsasi.
Punaryogam cha shamsasi.
Yachreya etayorekam.
Yachreya etaro ekam.
Tanme bruhi sunishchitam.
Tanme bruhi sunishchitam.
Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha shamsasi Yachreya etayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam.
So Arjuna says, "O Krishna, you praise renunciation of action and then you praise Karma Yoga also. Tell me with certainty which of these is supreme and leads to ultimate good and hence is an ideal for me to abide by." Now in chapter 4 we saw almost 8 times across 8 verses, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, he advocated the renunciation of karma sannyasa. And then in the last verse, in the final verse of chapter 4, Bhagavan tells Arjuna, instructs him, get up, uttishto, get up and go and perform your duty, perform karma yoga. And that leads to the doubt or the question that Arjuna has of Bhagavan, which we just heard. Students of Bhagavad Gita often have this question about what is the difference between this question that Arjuna just asked and the question Arjuna asks in the beginning of chapter 3 before Bhagavan starts the teaching of Karma Yoga. If you remember, the first verse in chapter 3 was, Arjuna says, Arjuna vacha jayase chet karma naste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So there Arjuna says, "O Janardana, if in your considered opinion wisdom is superior, wisdom is greater to action, then why in action that is so ghora, that is so terrible, you keep goading me, you keep asking me to engage, O Keshava?" So let's see the difference between these two. But before we do that, as I was preparing for the satsang, I got very tempted to spend some time discussing the 3 names in these 2 verses, the first verse of chapter 3 and the first verse of chapter 5. We see 3 names of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, of Bhagavan. The first 2 are Janardana and Keshava, which is in chapter 3, and Krishna now in chapter 5. So these nama, other than Vishnu, probably Sri Krishna is the only Bhagavan who has so many names, the nama of Sri Krishna. And each one of them used so very appropriately by Arjuna or by Sanjaya or obviously by Sri Vedavyasa at various stages of the Bhagavad Gita to depict or to show what is being said at that point in time. So let us spend some time, looking at, the names of Sri Krishna that we have just seen, the three names. Janardana, and we have briefly discussed this earlier also. Janardana is one to whom people place their request. Jana, Ardhana. Jana is people and Ardh is to seek, to beseech, to ask for. So Arjuna is beseeching, Arjuna is asking Sri Krishna. And Keshava, oh Keshava, he says, Keshava is the slayer of demon Keshi. And Keshava also means one who has tamed his mind. So Krishna had this friend in Gokul by the name Madhumangal. And Madhumangal, often used to tell Krishna, you Krishna, you are so popular. And that's only because of your, yellow dhoti, you have this peacock feather, you have the flute in your hand. And if I had all these, I would also be as popular as you. So if you give them to me, you see how popular I become. And Krishna is, happy to have his friend be popular. So he says, please take my dhoti, take my flute and take my peacock feather. And Madhumangal takes them and dons them and he goes around. Now, what happens is some swords are, double-edged. Double-edged sword we have heard about, right? The twin edges. And the wielder of these swords need to be very careful and also needs to be very strong at the same time. Now, we all know that Kamsa has been after Sri Krishna's life, fearing that Sri Krishna will kill him, which is what ultimately happened. And he tried in various ways to put an end to Sri Krishna's life. Around this time, he creates this demon called Keshi. And he tells Keshi that go look for this young boy who is wearing a yellow dhoti, who has this peacock feather on his head and carrying this flute, and kill him, annihilate him. Now, Keshi is a demon who can travel faster than a horse. That's the reason the name Keshi. Now, Madhumangal is this boy now. And can he handle Keshi? No way. So ultimately, Krishna comes to the rescue of his friend and subdues the demon that could travel faster than thought in the form of a horse and kills the demon. And hence the name Keshava for Sri Krishna, the conqueror of Keshi. Also, we just said that Keshi traveled faster than thoughts. So another meaning for Keshava is one who has mastered his mind by removing the thoughts. In Karma Yoga, one has to run with the thoughts. In Samadhi, one has to control the mind by reducing the flow of thoughts. The mind races with its thoughts, exactly like a horse races. And what do you do to control a horse? To control a horse, you have to first befriend it, become its friend. Once you befriend it, then you don't allow it to go in its wanton way. You would have often seen the visor that is put on the horse's eyes. Otherwise, the horse will go anywhere it wants to. So limiting its vision, not allowing it to go in its wanton ways. And then you sit on it and control with the reins, you control where you want to take the horse. And finally, when you have the horse under your control, then you use it the way you want to use it. Either you can trot or you can gallop or you can cross over obstacles or whatever you want to do. Similarly, to control the mind, one has to first befriend the mind and then reduce its wantonness, because the mind is wandering all over the place, wantonly wandering. And how do you do that? By reducing the thought flow. And then slowly, once the thought flows are coming down, then you start controlling the way that you want to take your mind. And finally, at the pinnacle of meditation, at Samadhi, which is the pinnacle of meditation, subdue it completely by making the thoughts equal to zero. So taming the horse makes it move as per the jockey's commands. If the jockey does not control the horse, and is not able to tame the horse and then control it, the jockey would get thrown off. Likewise, the reins of our minds should be with us, not the other way around, where the mind is controlling us. Rather, we have to have the reins of the mind in our hands. In chapter 3, Arjuna beseeches Krishna, O Janardana. And then he addresses him as the person who has controlled his minds and thoughts, O Keshava. Because to achieve wisdom through samadhi, the mind must be controlled. Without that, there is no possibility of going into samadhi, leave alone achieving wisdom through samadhi. Now in chapter 5, Arjuna chooses to address Bhagavan as, O Krishna. Krishna is one who is ever of the nature of Ananda. Krish means always, ever, sada. And Na, Krishna, Na means Nirvriti. Nirvriti, he is Ananda, bliss. Ever in Ananda. So Krishna is Sadananda, one who is in eternal bliss. This is very relevant here, and Arjuna addressing Bhagavan as Sri Krishna. Because that's the question Arjuna is struggling with. How, O Bhagavan, how do I proceed towards Ananda, towards eternal bliss? Should I do Karma Yoga? Should I do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana? That is the question he has. Another meaning of Krishna is one who removes the sorrow of his devotees. It comes from the term Akarshana. Akarshana comes from the root Krish. Akarshat, Karshanat Krishna, Karshati Dukkhani Sharanagatam Mam Bhaktana. So Karshati means takes away, removes, Dukkhanam, the sorrows, Sharanagatanam Bhaktanam, of the devotees who have surrendered, who have attained Sharanagati. So Arjuna is beseeching also again, saying, please take away, O Krishna, the one who removes the sorrows of your devotees. Please take away my sorrows. Because we know that Arjuna, the reason for his current state is number one sorrow, shoka, and then consequently moha. Please take away my sorrows, O Krishna, and replace them with eternal bliss. And he says, show me or tell me which is the ideal path for me. Is the pursuit of sannyasa karmanam, giving up actions, ideal, or performance of karma yoga, ideal? So beautiful names of Sri Krishna, used so appropriately. Let us now go back to the difference between these two questions of Arjuna that he asks in the beginning of chapter 3 and now in the beginning of chapter 5. To understand this, we must keep the spiritual path in context. And I hope all of you have gone through. I had sent you the spiritual path, which we have covered in detail earlier, but we'll just go through that even now. So the ignorant and the wise, that is the key point here, okay? Who is the person who is ignorant, meaning the person has not gained Tattva Jnana, and the wise who has gained Tattva Jnana. And we saw in the spiritual path, how the person gains. In every field, how the person gains Tattva Jnana. In every field, we know that people who are either knowledgeable of that field or are ignorant of what that field covers. You can talk about software coding, okay? Some people know what it is, some people don't know what it is. Technology, some people know how to use it, some people don't know how to use it, okay? I saw Sharmaji's, I think grandson, he was helping him with, the technology there, right? So the child is knowing how to use that, right? So cricket, some people know how to play, some people don't know how to play. Architecture, some people know how to architect various things in various fields, some people don't know. Surgery, rocket science, and so on. Take any field, you have people who are knowledgeable and people who are ignorant. And then not only that, people who are knowledgeable and ignorant, there is a level of proficiency that is a benchmark that can then define whether the person has the knowledge about that field or not. In spirituality, the ignorant or ajnana is one who does not have aparoksha jnana, tattva jnana and aparoksha jnana. That is the benchmark. Such a person typically has desires, wants, cravings, and so on and so forth. On the contrary, a jnani or a vijnani is a person who has this aparoksha knowledge or aparoksha jnana. What is aparoksha jnana? Direct experienced wisdom, not something that is hearsay. What the person has actually experienced, right? So this person who has experienced wisdom, that person's real nature is Satchit Ananda, the Sadananda, Satchit Ananda. And the person thus is naturally fulfilled. And how does one get aparoksha jnana? Let us quickly revisit the spiritual path. All of us, we know, we all perform actions. We saw that earlier also. Everybody is acting all the time, most of the time at least. Even in sleep, we are acting through our dreams. So karma is action. And all karma leads to some result. When that result is visible to us, that result is drishta, typically in terms of joy and sorrow. Okay, because ultimately everything comes to joy and sorrow. So the drishta result is joy and sorrow. But there is an adrishta result, which is the intermediary that leads to joy and sorrow. That is punya and papa. Punya leads to joy and papa leads to sorrow. Punya is nothing but that calmness of the mind and the stability in the mind, and papa is nothing but a disturbed mind. And how does this come about? By converting karma into karma yoga. And how do you convert karma into karma yoga? When we do karma with Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, which means whatever we do, we dedicate it to the Lord. And whatever result comes, we accept it with equanimity. Prasada means equanimity. And as benevolence, Prasada also means benevolence from the Lord. And when we do karma with Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, that leads to Karma Yoga. And in Karma Yoga, there is no joy and sorrow. The intermediate result of Papa or Punya, that leads to straight to Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is what? Purity of the mind. So even if there is the Karma Yoga that we are performing, that does not result in the desired, what we thought that we would get, even that little disturbance leads to calmness of the mind. And calmness of the mind is what essentially is calmness of the mind. We saw that the Shadripus, the 6 disturbances, which are what? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. Desire, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and jealousy or envy. All of these get removed. They go away. And that then leads to samatvam or equanimity in the mind, the prasada buddhi. And that results in sadhana chatushtaya. Sadhana chatushtaya is 4-fold qualification. And when a person has this 4-fold qualification, the person is an adhikari, knowledgeable in the subject of pursuit. Viveka yukta. So what are the 4-fold qualifications? What are sadhana chatushtaya? Viveka. Viveka means can distinguish between what is permanent, what is impermanent, nitya and anitya. In our context, can distinguish between karma and samadhi. Arjuna is obviously not able to distinguish. That viveka, when it comes, you know whether you should do karma or you should do samadhi. Then vairagya. Vairagya is dispassion. And then mumukshutva. Mumukshutva is the only desire, if at all a person has, is the desire for the Supreme. And before mumukshutva is the sham adi satka sampatti. We have gone through all of this. Sham adi, so it starts with shama, which is control of the mind, Dhamma, control of the senses, Uparama, Titiksha, forbearance. Uparama is the ability to not get distracted. And even if you have Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, still things will happen which you don't like. Then you need forbearance, you need Titiksha. And then Shraddha, which is devotion. We saw extensively in last satsang. Bhagavan talked about Shraddha. And Samadhana, which is focus. When we have all of this, that means we have Sadhana Chatushtaya. And that means that you are an Adhikari. And even after being an Adhikari, sometimes you need guidance. So you seek Guru Upasadana. That is the next step in the spiritual path, which is approaching the Guru. Remember verse number 7, chapter 2, where Arjuna approaches Sri Krishna and he asks for guidance. He says, you are my Guru Bhagwan, please guide me. And that leads to, when you are with the Guru, you do two things primarily. One is Shravana, which is listening to the Guru. And the second is Manana, which is questioning, discussing, arguing, debating, and so on and so forth. And that then results in Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means contemplation, meditation. Once you have the Samadhi Shakta Sampatti, when your mind is equanimous, then you are able to sit down and focus and concentrate and meditate. Like we said, the gulab jamun that is absorbed in the syrup, you absorb your mind and intellect into what you have learned. And that leads to clarity of thought. Samabuddhi. You are very clear, you know what you want to do. And that Samabuddhi results in what is known as Vividisha Sannyasa. We are still a seeker. The person who is in this path is still a seeker. And Vividisha Sannyasa. Sannyasa, we saw, what is Sannyasa? Sannyasa is renunciation or letting go of the lower to attain the higher. Anything in our path. Whatever is, if I want to exercise and become fit, I have to let go of sleep. Sleep becomes the lower, exercising and becoming fit becomes the higher. Letting go of the lower to attain the higher is sannyasa. And Vividisha Sannyasa is the sannyasa or the renunciation of the seeker. Like a bee that is seeking nectar, it is just focused completely on finding that nectar. Immense concentration. If you observe bees, you will see that. They are zoning in on finding the nectar. It's the song of search. The buzz of the bee at that time is the song of search for nectar. And sannyasa is nothing but intense activity. Sannyasa is not that you just sit down and don't do anything. Total, complete, non-stop, dedicated pursuit is sannyasa. Total, complete, non-stop, dedicated pursuit. And that kind of pursuit leads to two things. Avidya Nivritti, which is removal of ignorance, and Vidyananda Prapti, which is attainment of wisdom, gaining of wisdom. And that then leads to Tattva Jnana, knowledge of the self. And knowledge, when you have that knowledge of the self, when you know the reality, the truth, the knowledge of the truth, that results or leads to bhakti or absolute devotion. When you see, because you know about yourself and you see that you are nothing but a tiny speck in this vast creation. When you go to the Himalayas, you feel that often, when you're standing in front of the mountains, just a tiny speck. Or when you go to Niagara Falls, there are some natural creations, resources, the wonders of our planet, where you go and you are there and you see that, oh my God, look at this creation. It's humongous. And I'm just a tiny, small little speck in that creation. And this realization, this jnana, this realization of the truth leads to devotion. That humility, that leads to devotion. And results in the ability to immerse, get into samadhi. Samadhi leads to Atma Tripti, Atma Rathi, Atma Santushti. Atma Tripti is nothing but self-delight. Atma Rathi, self-satisfaction. And Atma Santushti, self-contentment. So there is no dependence on external factors to get delight, satisfaction, or contentment. Comes from within. And that lack of dependence leads to then or results in aparoksha jnana, which is direct realization, direct knowledge, wisdom through your own personal experience, not because you have read somewhere or somebody is telling you, not even the guru, through your own personal experience. Like we said, electricity yoga, if you remember, how do you know there is electricity? Perform the yoga of putting your finger into the 220 volt connection. Then you'll know, you'll experience it, the jolt that comes out of it. Till then, you only read about or heard about electricity. That aparoksha jnana, that which you experience directly, leads to nirvedam or dispassion. And that results in samadhi abhyasa. You keep the practice of meditation. Samadhi abhyasa then leads to two things again, which is ashubha vasana nivritti, which is nothing but removal of negative tendencies. There are tendencies within, our own tendencies, our vasanas. The ashubha vasana gets removed and shubha vasana prapti, gaining of positive tendencies. And that results in vidvat sannyasa. Vidvat sannyasa is the renunciation of the jnani, of the knower. We talked about a bee that is seeking nectar. What happens when the bee has found the nectar? That buzz completely stops. Shant, absolute shanta. Complete silence. Still, quiet, absorbing the nectar. That is vidvat sannyasa. And vidvat sannyasa leads to vasana nivritti. All the tendencies get completely purgated, removed. Purgation of tendencies. And that finally results in Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means liberation while living, moksha, while the person is alive. This is like that bee that emerges out of the flower with the nectar. Again, the buzzing starts. So a person who has a Jivan Mukta is not like the Jivan Mukta is in Samadhi. The Jivan Mukta is active in the world. But that is the song of bliss. The earlier bee song, that buzz, was the song of search. This is the song of bliss. When you emerge out of the flower with the nectar. And that leads to attainment of Parama Purushartha. You read about Parama Purusharthas? And the Parama Purushartha was deep happiness, long-lasting happiness. That deep and long-lasting happiness is Parama Purushartha. Jivan Mukti leads to Parama Purushartha. And that then results in Brahma Nirvana or Yogam, which is true identification, true realization. And true identification and true realization leads to Sattvika Shraddha, devotion of the pure and pure devotion. And that results in Videha Mukti, which is no further birth, ultimately reaching the final abode of the feet of Bhagavan or merging into Bhagavan as your wish may be. So this is the spiritual path. And we saw that the threshold of jnana or knowledge is what? Is Tattva Jnana and Aparoksha Jnana. These are the two major thresholds. Tattva Jnana is knowing the truth, realization of the truth, complete knowledge of the self, and Aparoksha Jnana is experienced wisdom. These are the big milestones in the spiritual path. A person who has Aparoksha Jnana is the knowledgeable person, and the person who does not have is still learning, in the process of learning. Now, Arjuna, when he asked that question, this is where the difference comes. So, one person is dependent on the world for satisfaction, while the other is self-fulfilled. A person who is ignorant and goes up and down with joy and sorrow, oscillates between the extremities. There are extreme mental states And these extreme mental states are influenced by the external extremities in terms of the results and other aspects. When we do Karma Yoga, performance of Karma Yoga as an offering, as doing everything as an offering to the Lord, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, such a person realizes that I do not need to be selfish in order to be happy. And that leads to a balanced approach in life. And that balanced approach in life helps the person to accept karma phala or fruits of action with equanimity as prasada. In the earlier instance, Arjuna was ignorant. And Arjuna did not know that he was ignorant. In this instance, Arjuna is still ignorant or is still in the process of learning. Ignorance is not bad. Ignorance person is a person who is still learning. Learning is one of the best things in life. So please do not, think ignorant is not good. A person who is still learning. So now Arjuna is still ignorant, still in the process of learning, but he realizes it. A big, big improvement over being ignorant and not knowing it. Earlier he asked Bhagwan why he can't directly dive into Samadhi Abhyasa and why can't he become a Vidvat Sannyasi. Especially when Bhagwan is praising that path. Directly reach top of Mount Everest, just transform yourself into top of Mount Everest without traversing the path. Arjuna assumed that he has Tattva Jnana. And Arjuna assumed that he has Aparoksha Jnana. He thinks that he can directly immerse into Samadhi Abhyasa. He believes he can give up karma. And he can give up also Shravana Manana and Nididhyasana at that time and take up Samadhi. And at that time, Bhagwan's answer was, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Arjuna, you are still a yogi. Please do Karma Yoga. You are not yet a Sankhyanam, a person who has the knowledge. So focus on doing Karma Yoga. Now, with his misconceptions removed, Arjuna knows and he accepts that he is Ajnani. He does not have the knowledge. At the same time, Arjuna is still shying away from performing his duty. He does not want to go into war. So he asks Bhagwan whether he should do Karma Yoga. And Bhagwan, you're constantly telling me, get up Arjuna, go fight. Get up Arjuna, go fight. Again and again Bhagwan tells. So should I be doing Karma Yoga or should I practice Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, which is Vividisha Sannyasa, by renunciating karma? So why not, Bhagwan? Let's just not get into this war. Okay, let's just renunciate. You beautifully expounded, why one should renounce karma. So let me renounce this karma and go and do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Okay, I understand. I don't have to do Samadhi Abhyasa. Let me do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. And you are there, my Guru. I can listen to you. I can ask you questions and I'll do my contemplation. Why do I have to do Karma Yoga? So Arjuna says, Arjuna Vacha, Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna, Punaryogam cha Shamsasi. Sannyasam, renunciation, giving up. Karmanam, of actions. You praise, Shamsasi, you praise, O Krishna. And cha is and. Punaha is again and again. Yogam Shamsasi, you also Karma Yoga, you praise. Giving up karma, you praise, and Karma Yoga also you praise. Yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Bruhi, tell. Bruhi means tell. Sunishchitam, decisively, conclusively, with certainty, for certain. Etayorekam. Etayoho means between the two, of the two. Ekam, one. Yachreyasya, which is ideal for me. Tell me conclusively, tell me for certain, of these two, which is ideal for me. Now, Bhagwan shares everything with Arjuna. Okay, comprehensive knowledge. He gives him everything without restraining anything. But whenever he gives an instruction to Arjuna, he says, get up, perform your duty, perform your Karma Yoga. Now Arjuna says, I know, I agree, I'm ignorant. But then both Karma Yoga and Shravana Manana Nididhyasana can be done by the ignorant. So tell me which one is ideal for me. Being an Agyani and not being an Adhikari. We saw what an Adhikari is, right? The one who has Sadhana Chatushtaya. So being an Agyani and not having Sadhana Chatushtaya, one takes up Karma Yoga. Being an Agyani and having Sadhana Chatushtaya, one takes up Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Now let us see what Bhagavan's answer to Arjuna is now. We'll go to the next second verse of this chapter.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha
Sri Bhagavanuvacha
Sannyasa Karma Yogascha
Samyasa Karma Yogascha
Nishreyaskaravubhau
Nishreyasakaravubhau
Tayostu Karma Sannyasat
Tayostu Karma Samyasat
Karma Yogo Vishishyate.
Karma Yogo Vishishyate.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyaskaravubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate.
Ubhau means both. So Bhagavan says both sannyasa, which is renunciation, and cha, karma yoga, which is yoga of action, both of them are nishreyasa karau. Nishreyasa karau means they are capable of bringing nishreyasa. Nishreyasa means ultimate good. Nishreyasa karau means that which is capable of bringing ultimate good. Shreyas is that which is good. Nishreyas is that which brings the ultimate good, absolute good. What is this ultimate absolute good? The ultimate absolute good is that which is totally free of sorrow. In this context also, Arjuna is beseeching Krishna, take away my sorrows and bring me that ultimate bliss. So Nishreyasa, ultimate good, ultimate bliss, completely free of sorrow. Here it refers to what? Liberation. Nishreyasa means liberation, moksha, jivan mukti. Because it is this jivan mukti, this moksha, that enables the person to be completely free of sorrow, in full bliss. Bhagavan says that both karma yoga and sannyasa have their goal as moksha and are capable of leading this person who is on the spiritual path to that moksha, to that highest bliss. Both of them have this capability. Both of them can give nishreyasa. And then he says, but tayoha karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Tayoha, of these two, karma sannyasat, than the renunciation of action, which means compared to the renunciation, more than the renunciation of action, karma yoga, the practice of karma yoga, vishishyate, is better, excels. So better than attempting meditation nididhyasana or being a vividisha sannyasi without having that sadhana chatushtaya is karma yoga. So when you don't have viveka, vairagya, mumukshutva, when you don't have the shamadhi, shakta sampatti, shamadama, uparama, titiksha, shraddha, samadhana, that time it is better to pursue karma yoga. Why? Because if you get into immersion, if you get into Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, what will happen? In Shravana, one will hear, but one will not listen. The import, oftentimes don't you find, if a teacher is taking a class, listening is there, but import is not there. So in Shravana, listening will not be there, only hearing will be there. In Manana, one switches off. Because one has switched off, the person, there won't be any question. When there are zero questions, there can only be two reasons. Either the person has grasped everything or the person has switched off. Manana, there is no question. And in Nididhyasana, one just cannot do it. cannot happen because there is no focus. Person will close eyes, sit down, but the mind will wander all over. Nididhyasana is impossible to attempt. Forget about succeeding in it. In any endeavor, the initial process has to be gone through. It cannot be avoided. To climb a mountain, one has to be fit. So you have to do the exercise to become fit. Then as you go up and beyond about 9 to 10,000 feet, you have to acclimatize because the oxygen is very rare. Because of the rarity of oxygen, you have to acclimatize. Then one has to reach the base camp. And from there, go step by step to the peak. So one must properly train for all the climbs of life. Today is Navratri. We wished all of us each other happy Navratri, right? It's a festival that is celebrated in every part of India. Wherever you go, there is some way. Each culture has its own unique way, but it is celebrated all across India. One festival that touches every small bit of India. For some, this is a time of reflecting and fasting. For others, it's a time of prayer and feasting. However, the common aspect of all these celebrations is the significance of victory of good over evil and replacement of sorrow with bliss. Victory of good over evil and replacement of sorrow with bliss. And this is exactly what Arjuna is seeking from Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Replacement of sorrow with bliss. But he is not thinking about victory in the war, still. Two most common mythological happenings that are depicted through the stories. One is the story of goddess Durga's victory over Mahishasura, and the other is the story of Lord Rama defeating Ravana, both after fierce battle. And their victory is celebrated as Vijayadashmi on the 10th day after the 9 nights. Navaratri is 9 nights. After the Navaratri, the 10th day is the Vijayadashmi day. The battle both Bhagwan as Rama and his consort Lakshmi as Durga fought depict Karma Yoga and depict that Karma Yoga must be performed in order to achieve the supreme. Navaratri is also dedicated to in 3 segments, 3 days, 3 nights. It is dedicated first to valor in the form of Durga, then to wealth in the form of Lakshmi, and knowledge in the form of Saraswati. All these 3, valor, wealth, and knowledge, are necessary for the attainment of the supreme. And all 3 come to human beings only after performance of Karma Yoga. Without that, it's not possible. Bhagwan now glorifies Karma Yoga in the next 3 verses. Let's recite the next verse.
Neyassa nitya sannyasi.
Neyassa nitya sannyasi.
Yo na dveshti na kankshati.
Yo na dveshti na kankshati.
Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho.
Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho.
Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
Neyassa nitya sannyasi. Yo na dveshti na kankshati. Nirdvando hi mahabaho. Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
We see 2 words here, sa and yo. Sa is saha, this person. Yo is yaha. Which person? The one who is engaged in Karma Yoga. Neya means should be known. This person who is engaged in Karma Yoga, know that person as what? As Nitya Sannyasi, perpetual sannyasi, ever a sannyasi. Sannyas, like he said a little while ago and earlier also, is giving up the lower to attain the higher. And a Karma Yogi has to give up so much. To have, like we said earlier, you have to give up sleep to exercise early in the morning. A Karma Yogi has to give up so much in order to perform the actions and duties that the Karma Yogi has committed to perform. But more than everything else, this person, she gives up na dveshti. gives up hatred. Na kankshati, gives up desires. The person has given up likes and dislikes. Dveshti, kankshati, hatred, kankshati, desires, likes and dislikes. Because he is performing action as worship to Bhagavan, to the Lord. When you are able to arpana to the Ishvara, you are able to easily give up likes and dislikes. And then nirdvandvaha. She is not tossed around by the extremities, has given up, let go of the pairs of opposites, joys and sorrows, profit and loss, victory and defeat. We saw this earlier in chapter 2 also. Nirdvandvaha. So the person has given up on likes and dislikes while performing action. And nirdvandvaha, the extremes of result after the action is done. So the person has to be in sannyas while performing action and after performing action. So the person is perpetually in sannyas. That is what Bhagavan is saying here. Nitya sannyasi is giving up while performing action, giving up after performing action. And performing actions in this manner, by being a Nitya sannyasi, sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Sukham, easily, without any difficulty. Bandhat, from bondage. Pramuchyate, is set free, is liberated. And then Bhagavan continues praising Karma Yoga in the next verse.
Sankhya Yogau Pratak Balaha Pravadanti na Panditaha Ekam Abhyastita Samyaga Ubhayor Vindate Phalam.
Sankhya Yoga. That means Sankhya and Yoga. Pritag. Pritag is different, distinct. Pravadanti. Who says this, that they are different? Balaha, children. Na panditaha, not the wise. It is the children who say it. The wise don't say that it is different. So that which explains very well is called Sankhya. Explains what? Any subject, whatever we are studying. But now we are studying about Atma Vidya. We are studying the Bhagavad Gita. So that which explains very well is Sankhya. And what gives Atma Vidya very well? The Upanishads. So the another name for the Upanishad is Sankhya. And Sankhya is that which is explained by the Upanishad. Sankhya is that which is explained by Sankhya. And what is explained by Sankhya? Atman, the self, and Brahman, the divine. So the literal meaning of Sankhya is knowledge of the self and the divine. Here in this context, Sankhya refers to those who devote themselves to Sankhya. And Yoga refers to those who devote themselves to Karma Yoga. So Sankhya Yoga implies both Sankhya and Karma Yoga. When you say Sankhya Yoga, it's like a hyphen in between Sankhya and Yoga. These two are different is said by children. Balaha. Balaha implies those who get children easily get carried away. They do not know the depth. So in the context of referring to children here is people who are superficial, do not get into the depth of the subject. Those people are the only ones who say these two are different. The Panditas don't do that. The Panditas, who are Panditas? Panda means knowledge. And Pandita are those who have Panda. And in this case, Panda of the Upanishads. And what do these Panditas say? They say, Ekam api. Ekam api means that one only. What does that mean? Whatever is appropriate for you, depending on your progress in the spiritual path. That only, whatever is appropriate for you. If you have duties, perform them as Karma Yoga. If you have completed your responsibilities and have time for Vividesha Sannyasa, do that through Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Do what is appropriate for you given the stage of life you are in. Samyag astitaha. Samyag astitaha means abide in that firmly. Perform that sadhana to perfection. Samyag means perfectly. Astitaha means firmly. So perfectly, Bhagavan keeps saying samachara, if you remember, right? Perfectly, with perfection, abide in what is appropriate for you. And when you do that, vindate phalam ubayoho, attain the fruit of ultimate supremacy, nishreyasaha, of both. Obtain the fruit of both. Vindate phalam ubayoho means obtain the fruit of both. Both of them are meant for the same goal. And that goal is Nishreyasa. And Bhagavan continues.
Yat sankhye prapyate sthanam.
Yat sankhyai prapyate sthanam.
Tad yogairapi gamyate.
Tad yogairapi gamyate.
Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha.
Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha.
Yah pashyati sa pashyati.
Yah pashyati sa pashyati.
Yat sankhye prapyate sthanam. Tad yogairapi gamyate. Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha. Yah pashyati sa pashyati.
Yat sthanam, that place. Stha is that which is firm. Sthana is the changeless abode from which there is no fall, the Nishreyasa, the moksha. Once you get there, there is no fall. So yat sthanam is that abode, that firm place. Prapyate, reached. Sankhyaihi, by the sannyasi. We just saw that Sankhyahi, the person with knowledge, is the person who pursues absorption in that knowledge, the sannyasi. So that firm place that has been reached by this sannyasi, tad yoger api gamyate. The karma yogis also reach. Ekam sankhyam cha yogam. Both are the same. The one, the goal and the path, both are the same. The goal and the path of what? Sankhyam and Yogam. The person who pursues sannyas and the person who pursues karma yoga. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. He who sees, he sees. She who sees, she sees. Knowledge and action are like the either side of the coin, of the obverse and reverse. Of the person who is spiritually evolving, who is traversing this path that we went through, the spiritual path. Both sides of the same coin. One who knows truly acts rightly. Sri Ramakrishna said, one who knows truly acts rightly. One who does things perfectly knows them in their true perspective. Know and do and know are interchangeable. The knowing aspect here is Sankhya and the doing aspect here is Yoga. So Bhagavan will now, he will say that though this is so, even though the path and the goal are the same, even though they are interchangeable, even though the knowing aspect is Sankhya and the doing aspect is Yoga and they are interchangeable, he says Karma Yoga is essential. And without that, sannyasa is not possible. That we will see in the next satsang. Thank you. Hari Om.
Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om purnamada purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om
Shanti.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you, Hari Om. So, yeah, we have some time for questions, thoughts, comments.
Your Holiness, kindly permit me to give two instances of Karma Yogis or Karma Yoga Sannyasi, if I rightly describe. One is of the person in the beginning of 20th century in USA, Wilbur Wright, a cycle mechanic working in a tin shed, without fan, without proper dangari, without proper dress, without air conditioner, and the cycle mechanic was committed to only one thing, to create an aeroplane so that the man could fly into the horizon, into the sky. And ultimately he succeeded. Today, aeroplane has become a ubiquitous object in the world. Another in the instance of another cycle mechanic. He came to India from now called Pakistan between 1940 and 1950, settled in Ahmedabad. A Sindhi gentleman called.
Sir, sorry, you had started saying something and I dropped off.
Asuman Haruman Harbalani. He also became a sannyasi. Now the sannyasi has got a billionaire properties. I think more than a billionaire even. There is hardly any city in North India where he doesn't own property. And he is known as today Bapu Asaram. Asaram Bapu. He calls himself sannyasi. He also gives lectures on Bhagavad Gita. But now he is in jail, facing criminal charges, convicted of some moral turpitude, and now confined behind the bars in Jodhpur Central Prison. Now, sir, one instance of that Wilbur Wright, without any motivation, without any temptation, without any profit motive, he devoted himself with all the handicaps, and he provided to the mankind an object where the man can fly at the speed of sound, more than the sound. He succeeded. Now, who is a better sannyasi? Our Bapu Asaram or that great workman, cycle mechanic, Wilbur Wright, who with all the handicaps succeeded in providing an aeroplane? Who is the better sannyasi? Who is the better yogi?
Sharma sir, क्या हुआ that you started with saying something like Your Holiness, वहीं पे disconnect हो गया, because I am not my own any kind of holiness yet. I am also in the same spiritual journey. उसके बाद I got connected where you said, I think Asaram. I think you said Asaram. Then you said Wilbur Wright.
Yes, sir.
I didn't even hear the beginning of the question, and I heard the end of the question. So I'm sorry.
I gave the instance of Wilbur Wright, who with all the handicaps, working under a tin shed in 1905, cycle mechanic, and providing to the mankind an object to fly. And he's finally succeeded. He had no motivation. He got no dividend. He got no wages, no salary. Just his commitment that he wanted that a man who was to provide an artificial mean of flight. Man is not born with wings. Man cannot take flight with arms and legs. He provided us with an artificial medium to take a flight in the horizon and travel from one place to another. He would, to my mind, he was a better yogi than the one who amassed property after property and giving lectures but ultimately landing in jail. To my mind, Wilbur Wright, who died in poverty but provided the mankind with means to fly. He had all the concentration. He was a real Karma Yogi. My submission to you is this.
Actually, sir, this is a beautiful story, and yeah, it's something that can very, very relevant. I agree with you. That Wright was Wilbur Wright, an amazing sannyasi, a karma yogi. Absolutely right. That's true.
Very much. You have removed my doubt.
I think if no other thoughts or comments, we can continue next time. We have started a beautiful chapter. Chapter 5 is one of the beautiful chapters, and looking forward to continuing next Saturday. Hari Om, thank you. Hari Om.